Hello everyone,
Yeah.
good evening. This is Dr. Praveen Ramchandra. I will be the moderator for this session. The topic for today's webinar is do's and don'ts for doctors in COVID-19 pandemic. And I invite Dr. Chalapati to talk about what are the structural changes required in a simple clinic or a big hospital to fight this. Please, Dr. Chalapati.
It may not be an individual decision, but it is a collective decision between yourself with the management and admin, and it may involve a lot of cost, uh, but sometimes it may have to be done to control the infections and protect everybody. Uh, there are no specific guidelines, but it again generally goes with the general practice of infection control, social distancing, and minimizing the infection. So before going that, I want to bring you few facts about the Indian scenario. So the most contagious problems, the most communicable problems are pneumonias, acute respiratory infections, and the acute diarrheal infections, which constitute almost 75% of cases. This is as per 2018 data. So they are the deadliest communicable diseases. And coming to the various countries where the deaths are because of contagious diseases, the highest is South Africa, Pakistan, and India. So we do suffer with a lot of contagious diseases, and we should understand that. And we all know that COVID-19 is a very contagious disease. And this is one of the census as per Global Health Security rank out of 195 countries. Sorry. Uh, yeah. So India ranks 57. So the higher the rank, it is the more likelihood that we can suffer with a lot of epidemics, and the lesser the score, again we are more prone for epidemics. So India is more vulnerable to epidemics compared to even China and Italy also. But we should understand that China and Italy are one of the most affected countries. So we are still doing better because of the current lockdown and the current policies that the government has imposed. So this was as per the data in the 2 years back. So what is happening to the healthcare budgeting in India? So government is spending on healthcare is the lowest compared to the peer and advanced economies. It is even lesser than Mexico and small countries like Turkey. And the other problem is we spend very less on preventive care, that is only 6.8 compared to curative care. So we spend a lot on curative care, writing medications, doing surgeries and other stuff, but we tend to ignore the aspect of preventive care. So what we are discussing today in this webinar is about preventive care, so that we can protect ourselves and also our staff and also our hospital, our nursing home, our clinic, as well as our patients. So it is very important. And aptly, it was said in that one of the article that we need a reboot of healthcare in India, because we need to address all these issues. So one of the issues that we have to consider is structural changes in hospitals and clinics. What is the current challenge? So from next week, most of us will be starting to work more frequently for longer hours. So we have three challenges. So what about COVID patients? How to triage them, how to identify the cases and allocate the treatment. And it's more important, as cases increase, we have to match the burden of this disease. And it is also important to allocate the treatment for non-COVID emergencies, especially like myocardial infarction, cerebrovascular accidents, other causes of pneumonia, pancreatitis, GI bleed, poisoning, etc. In the same emergency of the same hospital, which must have been designated as COVID-19 hospital. And also, it is important to allocate our treatment facilities for other routine care, either it is a first visit patient or follow-up visit patient. So these are the challenges that we are going to face from next week when we start working for longer hours. So right at the entrance itself, it is always a good idea to establish a screening OPD, like a respiratory screening OPD. Like any patient who has these symptoms, they are voluntarily advised to visit this clinic, and staff are allocated there with full personal protective equipment, and they can screen. And this is one of the important change that we need to do. And at the security level itself, as I have mentioned in my previous presentation, there need to be an infrared thermoscanner, so that body temperature can be checked for each and every patient as well as relatives. So these are the two things that needs to be done at the entrance of the hospital itself. So one of the thing that we are following at our hospital is these kind of kiosk counters to screen these patients at the entrance level itself. So some kind of physical barrier will be there, and some two holes will be there here where two hands can be brought out and patient can be examined and patient can be questioned. There can be mic inside and outside like in our box office ticket counters. And it is a good idea to follow a protocol to to do a mandatory chest x-ray for each and every patient, especially those with respiratory symptoms, so that we know that certain patients can be asymptomatic or with predominant GI symptoms and they can still have abnormal chest x-rays, so that we can triage this patient. So putting up these kind of kiosks will also protect the patients as well as the staff from getting in direct contact with the COVID-19 suspect patients. So when the patient comes to the front office, it is always practice that patients tend to crowd around the front office. So it is always a good practice that you encourage the staff to call the patient one day prior and appoint them and give them appointments, and at the same go they can actually inquire if they have COVID related symptoms. And it is important to call the patient one by one only and to avoid crowding at the front office reception. The front office manager, of course, should be protected with full gear PPE, and it is important to actually monitor that they maintain the adequate distance between person to person. So I'm keeping this hand sanitizer picture in every slide because that is the most important, and apart from social distancing. So a practice like this thing will be good, assigning some kind of circles so that patients can maintain adequate distance. The minimum recommended is around 2 meters, in fact. So longer distance circles can be maintained. We have seen this in our newspapers where actually police have marked for vegetable markets, where they are advising the customers to stand in that row to actually purchase their vegetables in the vegetable markets and grocery stores. So same thing can be practiced at the front office also, so that a discipline can be maintained and distance can also be maintained. So same thing can be actually seen at the pharmacy also. We can, and lab, where we can use a kind of counter wherein there will be a physical barrier, a transparent physical barrier between the patient and the pharmacy staff, and medicines can be dispensed through a hole or a small aperture kind of thing. So these things are very important. And what about entrance doors? So Dr. Khalik has shown up, presented a very interesting cartoon. So it is a common practice that we barge and bang on the doors with our hands and legs. But it is a good idea that we can shift to swing type of doors where we can just use our back or hip or kind of elbow, or it is always even better if we have automated sensor doors wherein they open and close when they sense the incoming and outgoing of any patient or person. So it's always better to have automated entrance, but it may not be possible outside your OPD chambers where there will be a lock, where there will be a knob like that. In that case, it is advised to have patients to wear gloves or push it with elbow or shoulder or in fact your back. So that is always better. And it is always important at regular areas outside every room or every 6 to 8 feet, it is always important to install these kind of wall mounted sanitizers. We always see these kind of sanitizers at the bedside of every patient in the ICU or in the general ward also, but it is also important to have this kind of practice of wall mounted sanitizers, so that whenever if somebody has forgotten to wash their hands, it is always important that these, if they are installed, they remind the consultant or the paramedical staff to wash the hands periodically. Establishing signboards is very important. This is very important to actually differentiate between a COVID ward and the non-COVID area. Isolation wards, it gives good signages. It can stop the number of visitors, it can stop the number of unauthorized personnel entering into the hospital, and it can actually demarcate the areas of patients with COVID and without COVID also. Certain help desks also help. We can put kind of standees with educational material regarding coronavirus infection, and also which patients can read that, and at least they can get educated then and there itself. And if there is any doubt, they can go to the help desk also. Patient spacing, we discussed about doing our OPDs when we are in hospital, but what to do for these patients when they're actually waiting. So encourage the patient to to take prior appointments, so that there will be adequate temporal spacing. So it is, as Dr. Khalik told, there should not be a policy of get set go for the consultant as well as for the patient. So it is always better to encourage to have a gap of 30 minutes for each patient, or at least 20 minutes for each patient. So if there is a spillover, that margin of time is allowed. And this would avoid overcrowding. And we know that overcrowding, even in hospital, is a big risk factor for spread of this infection. So ensure each patient sits in every third or fourth chair in the OPD waiting hall. That may actually give a distance of 6 to 8 feet, so that there is an adequate distance. And also mark the OP floor, as I've previously described, with some tapes or kind of paint around 1 to 2 meter each, and install stoppers also, so that patient follows a line. And this would maintain adequate spacing, and this would also remind the patient of the rules and the precautions. So this is the kind of thing. I borrowed this slide from my dear colleague, Dr. Sridhar from Guntur, who is following this kind of thing. On the right side of the screen, you can see that how patients are sitting in a disciplined way, and they move chair by chair whenever their turn comes. So one or two chairs, leaving one or two chairs is adequate. And sometimes if in COVID ward, or if you're there is a chance of mix up, then it is always better to maintain longer distance also, at least 2 meters, like that. So in chamber, what to do? So patient should be allowed inside with only one caretaker inside the chamber, who is most responsible, who can understand you, who can listen to you, and you can counsel them in one go. And it is always important and a good idea to remove the patient's stool. Commonly, two relatives will sit in front of you, and and the patient is going to sit beside you in the patient's stool. So it is always better to remove that stool, because he is the most important suspect of any kind of disease. So I encourage only one relative, and the patient should sit beside them in adequate distance, and from between themselves, as well as from you also, on the opposite side of the of your consulting table. So maintain at least 6 to 8 feet distance between each other. So don't be over enthusiastic while you're consulting. It is very important to counsel the patients, but we have common practices that we start drawing pictures. We take up our iPad and draw pictures and explain the patient, moving very close to them. But in this period, please avoid that. Let the patient only remain the opposite side, and you remain on the other side, and turn around your computer if possible, and then start explaining to them. Obviously, Indians are very famous for Desi Jugaad. These kind of screens were established in one of the clinics, shared through WhatsApp group. Some kind of physical polythene barrier was installed, and doctor physician was examining the patient on the opposite side. So that may prevent physical aerosol. But the problem here is the doctor is not wearing any mask. So please excuse me for that on his behalf. So this is the practice in OPD room. When you're touching an abdomen or doing some kind of physical examination on the other parts of the body, so please be careful to wear outer gloves, as I told you, and same practices should be followed. So coming to near the theater area, surgeon and staff changing rooms are very important. Please make sure that only one surgeon or staff is present in one room. And when you're donning and doffing, it is very important to follow the protocols. And more importantly, there should be two chairs while you're doffing, as per CDC guidelines, one a clean chair and another a dirty chair. So once you're coming out of the patient care, you have to sit in the dirty chair, make sure that you actually remove everything, and sanitize yourself, remove the PPE, and then move on to the clean chair. So it is very important not to mix it up. And of course, in the OTs, negative pressure laminar flow rooms, majority of the OTs have this. So I need not emphasize on that. There may not be much of things need to be changed in this area. Uh, in the scrub area, in the wash area, it is always better to have leg controls or automated sensors and avoid contact with hands and fingers. And I'm sure my surgical colleagues will be following all these things. Regarding doors, again, OT doors, there are many kinds of OT doors, but it is always better to have a kind of sensor. Like if you see in this area on the right side of the slide, lowermost corner, this is the leg sensor. So you can just raise your leg in front of this sensor and automatically this door opens and closes, rather than this kind of thing where you need to actually barge inside by pushing it, which is not recommended. Most importantly, our critical care colleagues, anesthesia colleagues, they have the habit of actually leaning forward and doing intubation, and patient may be coughing, and though how much soever you are protected with the personal protective equipment, you can still have this risk of exposure. And as shown in one of the recent NEJM paper, that using ultraviolet rays, fluorescent dye is put up in the simulator, and a cough simulation was made, and when the mannequin coughs, the doctor is filled up with entire these kind of droplets, and these are potential aerosols that can infect you. So this practice is very bad, so please avoid all these things. A simple modification is this kind of box made with acrylic of this kind of measurement, 62 into 47 with 2 holes, and the performer will actually wear full PPE, and the patient will be inside this box right from the mid chest till few centimeters away from the head level. And through these 2 hands, all the anesthesia equipment, the intubation equipment can be actually managed, and patient can be intubated safely. So this is actually published. This is called barrier enclosure, and there are various modifications that have been coming up in the WhatsApp, so you may take up any of those things. So inside the OR, this is one of my dear colleague and colleague surgeon who is doing, and he is with full personal protective equipment. You can see that there is no skin exposed to any of the free air, both of them, and there will be minimal staffing. So please provide, ensure that there will be full personal protective equipment in the OT, and there is minimal staff, but you should ensure that there is maximum patient safety, and also you should protect yourself maximum. So my colleagues and myself started using this kind of face shields to actually prevent the direct aerosol contact when you are doing some kind of endoscopies or when you are intubating. So it is always encouraged to have these kind of stuff. So coming to the endoscopy suites, this is from one of the presentations from Professor G.S. Raju. So if you are bound to do an endoscopy for a COVID positive patient, you should anticipate it. So it is always better to designate this area as COVID negative or positive at the reception area, as well as the preparation area, as well as in the endoscopy rooms, including the changing rooms. And immediately all the equipment should go into the soiled scope cleaning for cleaning and disinfection. So it is always better to demarcate these areas, so physically also, so that there will not be any mix up as you are doing it in the wards also. So importantly, about the ICUs, there will be most of the corporate hospitals will have multiple ICUs in multiple floors, like surgical ICU is next to the surgical floor, that is the OTs, and medical ICU is next to the in the first floor, like that. So multiple ICUs are there, so you can designate them as COVID ICUs and non-COVID ICUs separately. It is just a matter of identification and redistributing them, and similar practices need to be followed even in the accident and emergency department, that is casualties or emergency rooms. So it's very important to avoid these mix-ups. And as I showed, signage boards are very important, and there should be separate hospital entrances as released by one of the GOs from Andhra Pradesh. They have suggested to have separate hospital entrances, and floors can be identified for other admitted patients, like first floor is for this patient category of patients, second floor is for this category of patients, so that there will not be any mix-up in these wards. And washrooms, very importantly, majority of hospitals have these kind of washrooms where people go chit-chatting, and it's a common practice. And sometimes there may be one toilet, and a lot of people will be waiting in the queue. So we should not ignore this area, because there can be even virus shedding is noted in the feces, and there can be aerosol spread through the toilets also. So it is always better if you have these kind of things to actually use alternate toilets, alternate urinals, so that the alternate urinals can be used, so that physical and social distancing can be maintained. Or it is best to actually use a single toilet and promote and encourage people using only those toilets rather than the in a group. And obviously, if you can't manage anything, please ask your security to be more polite at the wash areas and ask them to control the crowd. Not to forget about the patient waiting areas, especially in the IP, when the patient waiting areas, especially in the ICU patients, if they are waiting for the relatives are waiting outside, there should not be any mix up. There should not be any mix up at the laundry. Again, assign separate machines and laundrers for that. Washrooms we have discussed, especially the biomedical waste management services. You have to see that there is no mix up at the sewage level, and canteen, Dr. Khalik has discussed, and maintain adequate staffing for each and every area. And also it is important to have good quarantine facilities even for your own healthcare staff. Like in our hospital and majority of the hospitals, they have separate hostels for the nursing staff and other staff, and they maintain some kind of rooms or kind of guest houses around the hospital, so that if if a doctor needs some kind of rest or need to quarantine himself, they need not go to the hospital, they need not go to the their house, and they can use these kind of things. So it's always a good idea to provide quarantine facilities for your healthcare staff as well. And obviously we should understand that it is not responsibility of Prime Minister, it's not responsibility of a single drug. It is responsibility for all of us to actually stop this coronavirus and deal with these difficult timings. Thank you so much for your patient listening.
Thank you very much, Chalapathy.